Nobody in Dub Nation is ready for how big this can get. Because while everybody is looking at the 4-1 start, at Jimmy Butler barking on defense and Steph casually bombing from the logo, the real story is happening in quiet calls, cap spreadsheets, and late-night conversations about what the final chapter of Stephen Curry's prime is going to look like. I'm talking about a move that doesn't just change your rotation, it rewrites the identity of the franchise. And if you've clicked on this video, you already feel it in your gut. Something about the way the Warriors are building this roster screams that they are preparing for a very specific kind of monster to become available. Welcome back to Warriors News Fan Report. I'm here to bring you the most up-to-date news and the smartest rumors about our beloved Golden State Warriors. Always mixing insider context with real analysis, so you're not just reacting to headlines. You understand what's really going on behind them. And today I want to walk you through the one scenario that could push this front office to the edge and force them to answer the biggest question of the Curry era. Are you willing to give up almost everything to put the most unstoppable physical force in the league next to the greatest shooter of all time? Let me set the table properly, because before we even say any name, you need to see how the board is positioned. On the surface, life is good. Golden State opens the season 4-1. The vibes are 1,000 times better than last year. The ball is popping again. And the Jimmy Butler experiment looks like exactly what the front office hoped when they pulled the trigger at the last deadline. Jimmy is doing Jimmy things. Point of attack defense. Late clock shot making toughness. That crazy attention to every detail that raises practice intensity and makes everybody a little bit more serious. Jonathan Kuminga, who spent the whole summer fighting for his status, shows up ready. He's attacking closeouts under control, defending multiple positions, finally looking less like a wild athlete and more like a real two-way forward you can trust in a playoff series. Steph, as always, is the sun everything orbits around, dropping something in the range of 27 a night and leading the league in threes made. But now he doesn't have to carry the entire emotional weight of the season alone. Even the new pieces, like Al Horford, are starting to settle into Steve Kerr's system, learning when to short roll, when to pick and pop, when to let the motion offense breathe. There are rocky stretches, sure, but for early season basketball, this is about as clean as you can ask for. And then you look at the schedule, and you see that trip to Milwaukee. You circle it, not just because it's a fun regular season measuring stick, but because of who is waiting on the other side. A two-time MVP who opens the year putting up video game numbers again, north of 36 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, plus a block every night, dragging his team up and down the floor with pure force of will. The Bucks are winning games mostly because that guy refuses to be anything other than a top 3 player on the planet. For all the talk about parity in the league, there are still a handful of players who bend the entire sport around them. And you know exactly who I'm talking about, even if I haven't said his name yet. Every time he comes downhill, you feel like the laws of physics are being tested. Every time he picks up a defensive assignment, you realize how rare it is to have somebody that big, that long, that locked in. Now, on paper, Milwaukee isn't supposed to be desperate. They're also off to a good start. They've been dealing with bad injury luck around him. They lost a co-star and plugged in a different big. And yet they're still hovering near the top, because that's what happens when you employ a player of that caliber. He has said all the right things in front of cameras, committed, focused, locked in on winning there. But if you've been following his interviews for years, you also know he's been crystal clear about one thing. His loyalty is tied to competitiveness. He wants to feel like the organization is as obsessed with titles as he is. And when reports start surfacing that the Bucks quietly tested the waters with teams like New York before the season, even if nothing advanced came out of it, that's not smoke from nowhere. That's a franchise at least acknowledging the possibility that one day, maybe sooner than people think, those conversations stop being theoretical. This is where Golden State sneaks into the picture in a way that almost feels too perfect. Think about the fit profile. You have a superstar forward who can do literally everything on a basketball court except reliably shoot from deep, and you pair him with the greatest shooter the sport has ever seen. Inside a system that has been built for a decade to weaponize spacing, cutting, and unselfish play. On defense, you get a long, switchable terror who can clean up mistakes on the backline, grab the rebound, and start the break himself while Curry and your shooters fan out to the corners. On offense, Every pick and roll at the top of the key becomes pick your poison hell. Do you chase Steph over the screen and leave a runway to the rim? Or do you slide under and let a historically lethal shooter fire away? Coaching staffs around the league have nightmare sessions imagining how they game plan that. But this is not NBA 2K, where you just toggle roster edits and suddenly your dream duo appears. In the real world, especially under the new collective bargaining agreement, money and rules and timing decide what's possible. So before we talk about confirmation or anything that dramatic, we have to walk through the ugly part, the numbers and the penalties. The Warriors right now are the definition of an all-in team financially. With the extensions, the Butler contract, the long-term money for key role players, and the decision to use the mid-level exception last offseason on Al Horford, they are sitting on a payroll right around $205 million. That's basically kissing the second apron line with only a couple $1 million of breathing room. In English, they are hard capped at that punitive second apron. They can, under any circumstance, go above it this season. That means no, we'll just take back a little more salary and worry about it later in any trade. The Warriors have to send out at least as much money as they're taking in. And on top of that, if the end result of aggregating contracts would push them over that line, they simply aren't allowed to do it. It's not a suggestion. It's a wall. On the other side, the Bucks are not in the same straitjacket. Their payroll lives under the second apron, gives them more flexibility to receive extra money in a trade, up to that familiar 1-100- and -20-5% of outgoing salary that normal teams get. That matters a lot when you start trying to build a realistic trade for a player whose deal sits in the mid-50s in annual salary. Giannis is not a mid-tier contract you can reach by stacking 3 or 4 role players. He is a franchise-level cap commitment. According to the current structure, his number for next season is in that $54 million range. With raises in the years that follow and a player option toward the back end that gives him even more leverage down the road, he's locked in for at least 2 more years with that option looming afterward. From Milwaukee's perspective, that's a blessing and a ticking clock at the same time. They have control for now, but they also know exactly when the do-or-die moment arrives. From any team dreaming about trading for it, including Golden State, it means you are committing not just to the basketball fit, but to a massive financial responsibility that will define your books for the rest of Curry's career. So what does a path even look like in that ecosystem? The Warriors can't just send out 4 medium-sized salaries to match his number. The second apron rules do not allow them to patchwork their way into that tier. They need at least one outgoing contract that lives in the same neighborhood as Giannis' deal. Otherwise, it becomes mathematically impossible before you even talk about value. And when you look at the roster, one number jumps off the screen: Jimmy Butler. He is on a deal that sits right in that $54 million bracket, identical to Giannis in some salary charts. From a pure cap machinery point of view, that's the key. It's not personal. It's not about respect. It's just the reality of how trades are built for stars of this magnitude. On top of that, we all know the emotional file on Jimmy. He's one of the best playoff risers of his era. But he also has a history of forcing exits when he doesn't like direction or culture. In Miami, it ended messy. Nobody can guarantee how he'd feel about being the face of a retooling project in a small market if Milwaukee decided to pivot. That's part of the risk any team taking him on has to swallow. If the conversation ever got real, you know the Bucks would ask for more than a superstar on the back half of his prime with a reputation for volatility. That's where Jonathan Kuminga enters the frame. All summer long, there were public and private signals that he wasn't thrilled with his role, that he wanted the chance to spread his wings somewhere he could touch the ball more. Golden State resisted selling low because they know you don't find 6'8" freak athletes with improving skill and defensive instincts on trees. But if the name on the other side of the table is Giannis, all your internal rules about "we don't move this guy" get stress tested. For Milwaukee, Kuminga represents exactly what they'd be desperate to find in a post-Giannis world. A young wing with star tools who could, in the best-case scenario, grow into a new franchise cornerstone. And Golden State, for the first time, would have to look their fan base in the eye and say, yes, we're willing to bet that what he becomes still isn't as valuable as the next 4 years of Giannis alongside Steph. Butler's monster salary plus Kuminga's rising, but still manageable deal would give you a big chunk of what you need for matching purpose. Because the Bucks can take back more money than they send out, they'd have some wiggle room to absorb a bit of extra salary, while the Warriors are forced to hit that precise line so they don't bust through the second apron. To balance everything and make the transaction legal in the league office, you'd likely see one or two smaller contracts coming from Milwaukee's side on top of Giannis. Maybe a young guard or a stretch big on a modest deal. The type of players who make the math work and give Golden State a little extra depth. Then you layer on the real sweetener, draft capital. The Warriors can put 4 first-round picks on the table, the maximum any team can legally trade at once under the Stepien rule and current CBA rules. It's not as many as some rebuilding teams can offer, but combined with a current star and a blue-chip prospect, it at least forces Milwaukee to stop and think. Emotionally, for us as fans, this is where it gets rough. You and I know exactly how it would feel to wake up and see that push notification. Butler gone after a single full season where he helped restore toughness. Kuminga gone just when he was starting to figure things out. 4 future firsts spraying out into the universe where they could become anything. Those are the guys we've defended in group chats. Those are the kids whose breakout we've been praying for. There's a human cost to turning them into assets in a spreadsheet. The front office feels that too. Bob Myers used to talk all the time about the pain of moving on from players like Iguodala. And even with a new regime in charge, the culture of caring about people hasn't disappeared. But the league doesn't care about our feelings. The only question that matters at that level is this: do you or do you not believe that pairing? Giannis Antetokounmpo with Stephen Curry in your jersey, in your building, gives you the clearest path to more banners. And if the honest answer is yes, then keeping players you love, but who aren't at that tier, becomes a luxury you might not be able to afford. Now think about the basketball, not just the math. Picture a Warriors lineup where Steph and Giannis share the floor with a mix of high IQ vets and young role players. Dribble handoffs where the defense is terrified of going under because Steph will bury them. But the second they chase over the top, Giannis is rolling straight to the rim with a head of steam. And the weak side defender has to decide between tagging the roller or staying glued to an elite shooter in the corner. Imagine defensive possessions where you no longer live and die with small ball fives trying to survive against 7-foot monsters. Instead, you've got Giannis protecting the paint, switching, erasing drives, grabbing the rebound, and immediately flipping the floor while Curry and the shooters sprint ahead. The spacing issues he sometimes faces in Milwaukee melt away in Golden State's system because of the way this team teaches movement, screening angles, and back cuts. You're not asking him to be a stationary post hub. You're turning him into an ultra-charged version of what Draymond Green has been for a decade, but with absurd scoring upside layered on top. All of this sounds like fantasy, and for a long time that's exactly what it was. Bar talk, Twitter threads, fans playing with the trade machine. But here's the part that brings us to today's video, and to that word I use in the title, confirm. Over the last few weeks, as the season gets going and teams have their early meetings with players and agents, a clear pattern has emerged around the Warriors. Every big decision they've made recently extending certain veterans, holding on to specific picks, instead of burning them on marginal upgrades, swallowing the pain of giving Butler that massive number lines up with one specific type of move. Not just any star trade, not just if a big name shakes loose, we'll see. The way people around the league are talking, the way the Warriors carefully stay non-committal publicly while leaving every door open privately, points to one conclusion. If Giannis Antetokounmpo ever seriously comes on the market, Golden State is not going to sit on the sideline. They have internally aligned on. And this is the moment, deep into the video, where I finally put it as clearly as possible. The Warriors have essentially confirmed Giannis as their North Star. Inside the building, from the front office to the coaching staff, and all the way to Steph's camp. The message is simple. If the Bucks reach the point where they accept that a trade has to happen, San Francisco will be one of the first calls. The structure we just walked through, Butler as the main salary anchor, Kuminga as the blue chip piece, 4 first-round picks, and whatever small contracts are needed to make the money work, is not a fan fantasy. It's the kind of framework that has already been discussed, modeled, stress-tested under the current apron rules. That's what Warriors confirm Giannis Antetokounmpo really means right now, not that a deal is done. Not that he has already chosen a Bay Area house, but that this franchise has decided he is the player they are willing to break their own emotional rules for. They have chosen their target. Of course, I need to be straight with you. As of this moment, nothing is official with the league office. There is no press release, no photo of Giannis holding up a Warriors jersey, no Adrian Wojnarowski tweet saying the trade is complete. Milwaukee still controls the timeline, and their first option will always be trying to convince him they can win big there. The Bucks front office has its own cap plan, its own draft pick situation, its own calculations about whether 2 more years of contention are worth the risk of losing him for nothing. Things have to go very wrong on their side, on the court and in the relationship, for them to seriously consider tearing it down. But the difference between this year and all the years before is that, for the first time, both sides of the equation are clearly defined. Giannis' contract lays out a narrow window where a trade would make sense. And the Warriors have a concrete package ready that satisfies both the new financial rules and the basic value. Principles of a superstar move. This isn't vague dreaming anymore. It's contingencies, it's structure, it's a team preparing for a very specific fork in the road. So let me turn it to you now, because this is where Dub Nation has to look in the mirror. Would you do it? If Adam Silver called tomorrow and said, you have 1 hour to decide, Butler, Kuminga and 4 first-rounders for Giannis, plus a couple of role players, are you in or out? Are you willing to see Jimmy leave after one hard-nosed season? Are you ready to watch Kuminga become whatever he becomes someplace else, just to see Steph flanked by the most dominant driver in the league for the tail end of his prime? Do you trust this front office, with its history of both brilliant bets and painful misses, to navigate this new CBA landscape and still build enough depth around a Steph Giannis core? Or do you say, no, keep the flexibility, bet on internal growth and hope that this version of the roster can sneak one more ring out of an increasingly brutal Western Conference? Drop your honest take in the comments, because this is not a simple yes or no question, and I want to know where the real fans stand when the cost gets this high. Here's my view, as directly as I can put it. The Warriors have reached the point where half measures don't make sense anymore. You're either protecting your future picks, going young, and accepting a step back, or you're going all in on maximizing the final elite years of Stephen Curry. There is no in-between under these apron penalties. If Giannis Antetokounmpo actually hits the market, I don't think you can credibly call yourself a franchise that did everything for Steph and then refuse to even be in that conversation. The basketball fit is too clean, the competitive ceiling is too high, and the window is too short to be scared of the pain it would take to get there. That doesn't mean you sabotage the present or leak offers just to get clout. It means you do exactly what the Warriors are doing now. You win as much as you can with this group. You keep your options flexible, and you quietly line up one monster scenario in the background in case the league's fault lines shift. So, when you hear that phrase, when you see headlines or videos like this one saying the Warriors confirm Giannis, understand it the right way. It's not a promise that he's coming tomorrow. It's an admission that inside this organization, they've chosen their ideal partner for Steph's last dance. They've adjusted their cap sheet, their pick management, and even their risk tolerance around the possibility that one day the phone rings. And the Bucks are finally ready to listen. Until that day, we ride with the guys in the building. We enjoy every ridiculous Steph flurry. We appreciate Butler's edge and Kuminga's growth. And we watch this team try to prove they might not need a Greek freak to be great again. But if that door opens, if the perfect storm hits and Giannis truly becomes available, don't be surprised when the Warriors are not just mentioned as a possibility. They're standing at the front of the line with a real package in hand. If you stay with me all the way through this breakdown, you are exactly the kind of fan I want in this community. Because you care about more than just quick rumors. You want to understand the strategy behind them. So here's what I'm asking. Tell me in the comments right now if you're on the push all the chips in for Giannis side, or if you'd rather protect the future and keep this core intact, and explain why. I'm going to be reading and replying, because this decision says a lot about how we see the identity of this franchise. And if you want to keep getting these deep dives, these mix of insider flavor and cap sheet reality about the Warriors, make sure you're subscribed to Warriors News Fan Report. Turn on the notifications and share this video with that friend who's always sending you fake trade screenshots. This saga is only getting started, and I'll be here with you for every twist, every leak, and every big choice the front office has to make.